Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're looking at a piece of history that is as fascinating as it is, frankly, deeply unsettling. The 1912 Villisca axe murders. If you've ever been pulled down the rabbit hole of historical puzzles or crime scenes that literally seem to defy all logic, well, you're absolutely in the right place. We've got a ton of wild details to unpack from the historical record here to see exactly how this incredible mystery unfolded. Okay, let's dive into this.
8. In most contexts, it's just a number, but for this case, it carries this incredibly heavy, chilling weight. We're talking about 8 sleeping victims, 8 innocent lives taken in a single night. That's the entire Moore family, parents Josiah and Sarah, and their 4 kids. And tragically, they weren't the only ones in the house. 2 young guests, the Stillinger sisters, just happened to be staying over. 8 people completely unaware of the absolute nightmare about to unfold.
And equally staggering is the number 110. It's been more than 110 years since that horrific night, and for over a century, this gruesome case has remained officially unsolved. Just let that sink in for a second. More than 100 years of advancements in criminal justice, countless hours of research, and it still stands as one of America's most baffling true crime mysteries. It's essentially a century-old ghost story, except every terrifying detail actually happened.
So to really grasp the shock of this, we need to trace the timeline. Think about the evening of June 9, 1912. The Moore family and the Stillinger sisters are at a church program, just a wholesome, picture-perfect, small-town Sunday night in Iowa. By that night, the group heads back to their peaceful home and goes to bed. Everything's totally normal. But then, we hit the morning of June 10, and the chronological contrast here is just jarring. A concerned neighbor notices it's unusually quiet. No kids playing, no morning chores happening. That eerie silence prompts her to go inside. And just like that, a perfectly peaceful evening shatters into a horrific morning discovery.
Imagine being that neighbor. You push open the door, maybe thinking someone is just under the weather, and instead, you find that all 8 people inside the house had been murdered with an axe while they slept. It is just a grim, terrifying reality. The absolute shock that neighbor must have experienced. A quiet, unassuming home turned into a slaughterhouse overnight with zero warning whatsoever.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the insight it gives us into the killer's incredibly methodical movements. This wasn't some chaotic frenzy. The killer moved silently through the home, so quietly that no one woke up to escape. They attacked the victims one by one in the dark. And then, here's the strangest twist. They just left the murder weapon, the axe, right there inside the house. Didn't try to hide it, didn't take it with them, they just dropped it and vanished.
But the bizarre details don't stop there. I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of those initial investigators walking into this gruesome scene. You're moving through this silent house, and you notice these highly bizarre, almost ritualistic clues. The mirrors throughout the home had been intentionally covered with clothing, and the windows were completely draped. So the killer didn't just commit this brutal crime, they literally took the time to deliberately alter the environment before slipping away.
Which brings up a seriously chilling question. Why cover the mirrors and windows? What purpose does that serve? Was it some kind of superstition? Was the killer afraid to look at their own reflection after what they'd just done? Or were they trying to hide the scene from the outside world? This one eerie detail really amplifies the baffling psychology of whoever did this. We're dealing with a mind that operates way outside the bounds of normal comprehension.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core contradiction of the whole case. On one hand, you have this extreme, unspeakable brutality, the kind of violence you'd expect from intense personal rage or a high-stakes robbery. But on the other hand, no clear motive. Investigators quickly realized nothing valuable was stolen from the home. Plus, there were absolutely no signs of forced entry. It's a horribly violent crime with absolutely no robbery or break-in to explain it. Make it make sense, right?
Naturally, a crime like this sent absolute shockwaves through the region. The authorities were under immense pressure to find the culprit, so they cast a really wide net. They questioned some diverse suspects, including a traveling preacher and a prominent local businessman. But despite turning over all these rocks, authorities just kept hitting dead ends. The evidence they scraped together was incredibly weak and, honestly, mostly contradictory. Nothing would stick.
Let's move to and see how this builds with one of the most confusing chapters of the whole investigation. Look at this timeline. It starts with a huge breakthrough. Reverend George Kelly actually confesses to the murders. Case closed, right? Well, actually, scratch that. Almost immediately, he recants, claiming the confession was forced out of him. From there, his story changes repeatedly, and because of this absolute mess of contradictions, there's no jury conviction.
His involvement didn't solve anything, it really only muddied the waters even further.
Because the official investigation failed to get a conviction, historians and true crime investigators still furiously debate three main theories today. First up, you have the drifter theory, the idea of a random killer passing through town who just slipped away on a train. Then there's the known associate theory, someone the family actually knew, which would explain the whole lack of forced entry thing. And finally, the unidentified theory, the very real, very unsettling possibility that the true murderer never even made it onto the police's radar at all.
Bringing things into the present day, the physical location of this tragedy hasn't just vanished into time. Remarkably, the Moore house still stands in Villisca. It's transformed from a quiet family home into a grim, enduring historical landmark. In fact, it's one of the most famous true crime locations in the U.S. today, drawing visitors and investigators from around the world who want to stand right where one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries went down over a century ago.
We've looked at the timeline, those totally bizarre clues, the lack of motive, and the suspects that slipped through the cracks. And yet, after all this time, after endless theories, we are still completely in the dark. It leaves us with this final haunting question that's echoed through the true crime world for over 110 years. Who killed the 8 victims inside the Villisca house, and why?